Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new sports debate video. So for today's video, we're going to be discussing the team that we felt has been the most surprising team this season so far. So more than half of the season is already gone. The trade deadline's already passed. So the most part, the teams that we see on the court right now are the final products of each team. So comparing the expectations we had of the team at the beginning of the year to how they played so far, which team has been the most surprising, whether a good surprising or a bad surprising. So to start off, we're going to go to Jared.
Right. So I'm going to be talking about a bad surprising, which comes from the Washington Wizards, who are currently 13th in the East with a record of 17-32, and they've lost their last four in a row. Now, in the beginning of the season, they acquired Russell Westbrook, which I know have many people's hopes high for this team, and they also have a great roster surrounding him. They already had their star Bradley Beal. I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, I think, but Hachimura was very solid last season, and has continued to do good this year as well. But they haven't been able to get wins together. They seem like a good team written down statistically too, but their record just isn't cutting it this year. They're not winning the games that they need to be. Now, of course, they may have had a more difficult schedule towards the beginning, and now it's easing up towards the end. But I think with their last four losing games, we're still going to need to see how this team's going to play in their upcoming games. I don't have too much hope for them, even if their schedule is a little easier, because they were expected to be one of the harder teams to beat this year with acquiring Russell Westbrook, and now we haven't seen them be one of the harder teams to beat, so I don't see them winning even their easier scheduled games. But I also think their defense is a big part of their problem. You know, they have a negative 5.5 point differential per game, which is ranked nearly last to 25th. And they also are turning the ball over too much. You know, Westbrook is known to be turning the ball over too much, but you obviously can't put the blame only on one person there, averaging 14.3 turnovers per game, which is 23rd in the league. And another thing that is causing their struggle would most likely be the lack of depth in the forward and center position with Thomas Bryant's unfortunate injury, which is leaving him out for the rest of the season. But I just think it's surprising how poorly they've done. Maybe they can turn their season around. I know some people believe that they could have had playoff expectations, but the way this season's been going for them so far, it does not seem like that's going to be a possibility.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from. You know, you have Bradley Beal, who's the league leading scorer, and many people thought he was an all-star snub the last couple of years, and he's an all-star this year. And then you add a former MVP and Russell Westbrook, and you feel like you have a team that can at least be in the play-in tournament, and they're not even in the play-in tournament right now, currently 13th seeded. But the team that I went with, it was also a bad surprise, and also in the Eastern Conference, is the Toronto Raptors. I'm looking at the projections at the beginning of the season. These are projections from December from Forbes, from Sporting News, and from Sportsnot. And all of these projections have the Raptors in the playoffs. Like one of them has them in the fifth seed, one of them has them as a sixth seed in the East, and the other of them has as a fourth seed in the East. And I personally had them as a sixth seed or fifth or sixth seed heading into the season. And not many people didn't think that they would miss the playoffs. If anything was going to happen, they were at least going to be in the play-in tournament. And the way the season is right now, they're 17-31, I believe, is what their record is. No, they're 20-31 as a record, and they are currently 2 games out of the play-in tournament. So not only are they not in the playoffs, they're not in the play-in tournament. And they have a lot of good players on their team. I mean, you have Nick Nurse, who is a championship-winning head coach. You have Kyle Lowry, who's considered a very good player, and many teams even try to trade for him. Contending teams try to trade for him this offseason. You have Pascal Siakam, who is a most improved player, and you have Fred VanVleet, who is a very good player as well. So you have a couple of guys who you have them on your team, but they just haven't been able to piece it together this season. And I haven't done as much research as you did for the Washington Wizards, but I mean, it's just disappointing for the Toronto Raptors that they were heading into this season projected to be at least a playoff team at the very minimum. And not only are they not a playoff team, they're also not a play-in tournament team. Now, once again, there still is a couple of games left in the season, and they're only 2 games out of the play-in tournament. And they might still make the play-in tournament. They might still make it into the playoffs. But the bottom line is that if they do make it into the playoffs, they're just going to be like barely making it into the playoffs. They're not going to be a top 4, top 5 seeded team of the Eastern Conference. And that's what many people expected the Toronto Raptors to be, and they just haven't lived up to those expectations.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's a shock to have such a big drop from expecting to be in the playoffs, such a like the middle of the seeding, and then dropping all the way down to not even possibly making the play-in tournament. And they have a very similar roster to the roster that they had in their championship run, so it is very shocking to see them not going very far.
Yeah, I mean the only difference is Kawhi Leonard, but that's obviously a big difference
Right.
when we're talking about championships. But you would still expect them to make the playoffs, especially in the Eastern Conference, which is tended to be a little bit weaker than the Western
Right.
Conference.